Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. So today I have an exciting video for you. Today I have some recommendations for historical romances, so it's sort of like if you like this historical romance, you might also like this one. So this is kind of a big list that I put together, and they don't really have any, like, some of them are similar in certain ways and some are similar in other ways, and I just felt like all of these sort of, when I thought of one book that I liked, I thought, oh, I bet people would like this one too. So that's sort of my disclaimer. So they're not all exactly alike. Sometimes they're different in a lot of ways, but they share some commonality, and if you like that thing in the one book, then I think you would also like this other book. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first one that I have is The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. If you are a fan of Julia Quinn, you know that she has a lot of great banter. She has a lot of very romantic scenes, and she has a lot of really fun moments in her books that are a pretty lighthearted and just a real enjoyable reading experience. So I think that if you like Julia Quinn's writing style that is sort of lighter, very fun, very like easy to get into, and just a great escapist read that doesn't have a ton of angst, then I would also recommend Lenora Bell, and specifically Love is a Rogue. Now these two books don't really have anything in common with the plot, but they are both very much a low angst, fun, happy, good banter type of read that are also sexy and romantic. So in this one we have Simon and Daphne, who are sort of a friends to lovers situation in here. Simon has sworn that he will never marry, but all of the women of the ton are sort of all over him because, of course, he's the Duke. Daphne is in need of a husband, and she wants to catch the eye of all of the good men that are available, so they sort of have a fake relationship and they team up in that way, but of course they end up falling in love themselves. And in this book we have Lady Beatrice, who is a very bookish heroine. She loves her books, she loves studying entomology, and that's all she wants to focus on. She ends up being in charge of taking care of the renovations of her brother's house, and our hero comes in and he is the carpenter, and they have a very fun relationship. There is a ton of great banter between them. It is very romantic, it is very swoony, and it is very lighthearted. So I feel like if you are a fan of the lightheartedness that Julia Quinn can do, I think you would also really love the lightheartedness and fun that Lenora Bell has in her books too. Okay, the next recommendation that I have for you is if you like Derek Craven in Lisa Kleypas' Dreaming of You, if you like sort of a morally gray hero who is definitely a little bit of an anti-hero and has that vibe of I hate everyone but you, then I would recommend that you try Christy Caldwell's The Hellion. This is a historical romance that sort of has a Romeo and Juliet-esque vibe to it, where these two families are enemies and they are feuding. But the hero in this owns a gambling hell, and it is burned to the ground, and he believes that it is his rival family who's responsible. He ends up thrown into this situation with the heroine, and they sort of have this just combustible chemistry together. And of course they have feelings, and this hero gave me a lot of those same I hate everyone but you vibes, and also just really falling in love with her against his better judgment and against his will, and I feel like that was something that Derek Craven had so much. Now I will say that comparing any book to Lisa Kleypas' writing is kind of a difficult thing to do, so it is different in that way, but it really gave me Derek Craven vibes, and it reminded me a lot of Lisa Kleypas in that it was a very epic and grand plot that had a little bit of twists and turns, but also a very scorching romance in it too. So if you like Derek Craven, who also is a gambling hell owner, and you want more of him, try The Hellion and see what you think. See if you think that he is also not on Derek Craven's level, because Derek Craven, one of my favorite historical romance heroes of all time, but similar vibes, and I think it has a lot of the same feel there. Okay, the next books that I have to recommend are if you are a fan of Tessa Dare's The Duchess of Steel, or specifically in a fan of her writing in general, like the good fun banter, the witty dialogue, the sexual tension, then I would recommend that you try A Beastly Kind of Earl by Mia Vinci. This is an indie historical romance. It is on Kindle Unlimited, and I enjoyed this so much. In A Beastly Kind of Earl, we have our heroine who has kind of been ruined, and she's really kind of fed up with men, she ends up taking her sister's place to pose as her to wed the Earl, who is Rafe. And Rafe is very much a damaged hero, very similar to how Ash was in the Duchess deal, and he immediately recognizes that that is not the woman that he actually engaged to, that it's his sister, but he plays along with it because he has to marry in order to get an inheritance. So we definitely have a little bit of an arranged marriage pact, we have a damaged hero, we have good banter, and while I will say that I think that if you want a Tessa Dare read, you should read Tessa Dare, but if you've read all of her books and you're looking for something that has really good banter, that has a very fun, spunky heroine, that has a damaged hero who is a little bit of a grump but also kind of soft for the heroine, I would definitely recommend that you check out A Beastly Kind of Earl because it really gave me Tessa Dare vibes and it was a ton of fun. Okay, the next books that I have to recommend are if you are a fan of Kerrigan Byrne, How to Love a Duke in 10 Days, and this whole series, the Devil in Her Bed series. If you're a fan of this series, and specifically this book, then I would recommend that you try Her Wicked Marquess by Stacey Reid. So in this book we have a heroine who has had some really dark, tragic things happen in the opening scene, and it really sets the stage for the rest of her life and how she copes with that. She also has to marry a man to save her family from financial ruin, and the man that she wants to marry is the Duke of Redmayne. He is on a path for revenge, and there's a lot of great chemistry and a wonderfully beautiful romance in here that does have those darker themes that have a lot to do with, like, righteous justice bringing about to people who have wronged them. So I really feel like the vibes that you get in this book are very similar to the vibes that you get in Her Wicked Marquess by Stacey Reid, which is about our heroine, Marianne, who does not want to marry, and her parents have arranged a marriage with a very elderly man, and she is trying to do everything she can to get out of it. She ends up seeing Nicholas, the Marquess of Rothbury, escaping out of a young woman's window, and when the ton sort of erupts with that scandal, she decides to claim that it was her window, so she will be ruined so that she won't have to marry this old man. These two end up both kind of on that same path of justice to find who they can bring to justice, who has committed this heinous crime against women in their life, very similar to this. And they also have a very passionate, beautiful, but also kind of a slow burn romance in here. It was honestly, this was just so lovely. I am a huge fan of Stacey Reid's writing. I think she handles darker themes very, very well, similarly to how Kerrigan Byrne does. So I feel like if you like the style that Kerrigan Byrne has of a darker historical with some of those themes that can be a little bit uncomfortable but also bring about the bad guys to justice, then I would really recommend that you check this out because I felt like it was similar vibes, beautiful writing, both wonderful reads. Okay, the next pairing that I have is One Good Earl Deserves a Lover by Sarah MacLean. This is one of my favorite Sarah MacLean reads. I absolutely adore the hero and heroine in this, and it is just so much fun. In this book we have Pippa, who is a very bookish character. She really definitely fits that stereotype of a girl who doesn't really know a whole lot about society and how to act in social settings, but she is incredibly intelligent and just whip smart. And in this book she desires to be ruined and to find out what happens in the marriage bed, and so she seeks out Cross, who is one of the owners of the Fallen Angel, because he has this reputation that he is excellent at that. So she seeks him out and asks him to ruin her. So the thing that makes the book that I paired to go with this is My Fake Break by Ava Leigh. This book also features a very bookish heroine who has a plot to catch the eye of one of the men in her field, who is just this also brainiac guy that she wants to catch his eye, and hopefully he will propose marriage to her because she needs to marry for her family's fortune to have any money. However, this guy doesn't seem to realize that she exists in that way, so she ends up getting the help of her friend, Sebastian, who is also a very intellectual, very bookish guy, to pose as a rake to draw the attention of this other man. So there's a little bit of a difference there in the tropes, but both of them feature very intelligent, very fun, very you know, women who really want what they want and they are not afraid to go about whatever means to get it. So I feel like if you're looking for a bookish heroine and you've read this but you haven't read this, give this a try because she's one of my favorite bookish heroines. She is very fun. This book was really just a delight and I think you would enjoy it. Okay, and the next pairing that I have are for if you enjoyed Her Night with the Duke by Diana Quincy, I think you would also really enjoy Waiting for a Scot Like You by Ava Leigh. We have two Ava Leigh books back to back. Both of these feature a little bit of a, I don't actually know if there is a huge, I don't think there is much of an age gap in here, but this one is definitely an older woman, younger man. But we have two widowed heroines who are out living their lives and living the life that they wanted to lead that they weren't able to do when they were married. So they have a lot of freedom, they have a lot of the sense of independence, they usually have the means to financially support themselves, and they are free from a lot of the societal constraints that are placed on women at that time. So it's a very fun historical read because they get to do things that they wouldn't normally do because they've already been married. So in this book we have Leela, who is a widow, and she is traveling. She ends up stopping at this inn, and she ends up meeting Elliot, who is the Duke. And there's only one bed at the inn. They end up having to share a room. They have one night together, and then they end up meeting later on when, lo and behold, Elliot is actually engaged to Leela's stepdaughter, her husband's daughter. Not her daughter, her husband's daughter. A lot of scandal. This book was really, really fun, and I really enjoy, I think that, so this book has, oh, I'm doing great in this video. So this book follows Beatrice, who is also a widow, and she is raised her children, she was a dutiful wife, and now she has decided that she is going to have the independence, freedom, and enjoyment that she wasn't able to have for the beginning of her life because she didn't really have a happy marriage. She had a husband who wasn't very concerned about her needs or desires or wants or really much of anything other than having her be a picture-perfect wife. So she decides that she's going to travel and go to an orgy, and she ends up being accompanied by Duncan McCameron and he is going to escort her there and make sure that she safely arrives. So you have a little bit of a road trip romance. This book was just so fun. I loved their romance. I felt like it was so just delightful. I really loved seeing Beatrice just embrace every opportunity for happiness that came her way, and I loved the freedom that she was able to have because she was a widow and she had finances to make that happen. So if you've read this and you enjoyed it, I would really encourage you to try this, and even if you didn't like this, still pick this up because it's one of my favorite books of the year, and I feel like it's one of the few older woman, younger man books that I have read that does it just really, really well. Okay, and the next pairing of books that I have are, well, one of them is pretty iconic, and that is The Bride by Julie Garwood. This book features a hero and a heroine so we have an English heroine, Jamie, and we have our Scottish hero, Alec Kincaid. And Alec Kincaid is looking for a wife, and when he meets Jamie, he immediately feels like, yes, she is the one for me. I want to have her at all costs. So they end up married, and Jamie has decided that she is never going to surrender her love to Alec, ever. This book is a classic historical romance, and I know that a lot of people really love and enjoy it. I think it's on everybody's Highlander romance lists. It was a good read. I did enjoy it. But if you are looking for something that is also a Highland romance that maybe has a hero who isn't quite as domineering and alpha as Alec was, then I would recommend you pick up Never Seduce a Scot by Maya Banks. This book has a wonderful alpha hero who is also just a cinnamon roll for the heroine, so that's what I like to call an alpha mellow, which in my opinion is the ultimate hero. This book follows Graham Montgomery and Evelyn Armstrong. So their two clans are feuding and warring, and they need to have a marriage between them to sort of bring peace there. Evelyn is deaf, and so her people kind of think that that is some type of a mental disability. They call her touched in the head. They don't realize that she's deaf. She ends up married to Graham. He takes her home and starts taking wonderful care of her, and he's really tender with her. And come to find out, when she leans her head on his chest and hears his deep bass rumbling voice, that's something that she can actually hear. And he finds out that she's actually not touched in the head, but she is deaf. Their romance was beautiful. I adored the Scottish Highland vibes in this, and it's one of the sweetest, most fantastic Highland romances I've ever read. So if you enjoyed The Bride, or if you are looking for a Highland romance and you haven't read this yet, pick it up. Alright, so the last recommendation that I have are for a series of books. So if you have read the Victorian Rebels series by Kerrigan Byrne, if you are a fan of this series, if you enjoy the morally gray heroes, if you enjoy the darker themes, if you really love good plotting and epic romances and you want more of that, I would highly recommend that you check out the Maiden Lane series by Elizabeth Hoyt. This is also a very long series. There are 12 books in this series, not including novellas. It has a ton of morally gray heroes and heroines. It has very great, tight plotting. It deals with a lot of darker themes, so make sure that you check trigger warnings if you need them before you read these. But if you are a fan of the Victorian Rebel series, then you are probably good to go on these, because I definitely feel like these go in those dark areas and they tread with darker themes and a lot of mystery and intrigue and deeply, deeply romantic relationships in each of these. This is also not quite as dark in some instances as the Victorian Rebels series is, but if you are a fan of this series, you need to read these for sure, because they will give you very similar vibes. You will get sucked into this world. I have been binging this series for the last month, and I just keep picking up one book right after the other, and I'm going to be really sad when I'm done. So, the thing that I was immediately reminded of when I started reading this series was this series by Kerrigan Byrne. So if you like this series, give this one a shot too. Alright, there you have it. Those are my recommendations for historical romances to try if you liked this other popular one. Please let me know what you think about my recommendations, or if you have read any of these and if you liked them. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in future ones.